Now, if you know your cars, you'll recognize these flags here. This is the flag that's been adorning Corvettes and Corvette Stingrays for, well, a long, long time, decades. And this one I'm pointing to, well, this is the one on the 2014 Corvette Stingray. Here it is in the flesh, a car that's really been long awaited by a lot of people, wanted to know exactly what General Motors would do with it. Now, the Stingray name is the interesting part, because the Stingray that the whole world remembers the most, of course, is the 1963, and it's been very, very difficult for General Motors to bring back the Stingray name. As the chief engineer talks about, look, we don't want to sully that name with a car that isn't up to it. They think this car is up to it. One of the features here that absolutely are mind-boggling to even you.
Mind-boggling to even me? Well,
Yeah.
to me, a car that goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, can seat 2 people in first-class comfort, lots of luggage room. I've told people I've gotten up to 38 miles per gallon on a 25-mile stretch. You know, having the car be just an animal when it needs to be, super performance, and then also be able to relax back, idle down, drop into 4-cylinder mode, and cruise along on almost no gas. It's just amazing to me.
You have, what, 450 horsepower here?
455 is base, and if you get the performance exhaust, 460.
Okay, now how do you manage to squeeze out pretty solid fuel economy numbers from a car with so much muscle?
Well, the engine's very efficient. It doesn't have a lot of moving parts. It's got a very high compression ratio. We pay a lot of attention to efficiency. As I mentioned, you can drop out 4 cylinders, work the remaining 4 cylinders harder. That's a big efficiency improvement. Corvettes are very light and they're very aerodynamic. And so a lot of the things that make a good sports car, a light car, aerodynamic car, a very efficient powertrain, things that are important in racing, important to sports cars, also get you good fuel economy.
Well, you know what really stands out is the technology story here. This is essentially an all-aluminum structure. There's lots of carbon fiber, like here in the hood to reduce weight, and on the lid to reduce weight. You know, there's very high-tech materials all the way through, all sorts of fancy electronic controls, huge horsepower, and there's enough structure here and enough technology and enough forward-thinking engineering to build much higher performance versions of the Corvette Stingray. Look for them to come.
We wanted a new statement for Corvette, something that was very fresh, very new, not retro in any way, but something that as soon as you saw it, you just knew it was a Corvette. So I think the lines of the car, the stance of the car, the proportion, those are all key things. So making that feel like a Corvette, and the form language, really getting very sheer, taut surfaces, crisp lines. It's a very tailored, more premium look to the car.
You also have some functional air vents and part of the car that they're not just design affectations. These are
Right.
really functional.
Right. Well, a huge part of the appearance of the Corvette, actually all of it, really has a functional basis. So everything there has a functional purpose, a reason for being. So, for instance, this vent on the hood is actually exhausting air that comes through the radiator. Previously it was ducted out underneath the car. Now we're taking it over the hood, more of a race car style execution, increases downforce, but it's another cool styling element to the car.
And the vents on the shoulders.
That's right. On the rear quarters, we actually took a cue from the Corvette race car, the C6R race car. They put vents there because that's where they should go. That's a high pressure area, but they work very well, and we actually use them here to cool the rear diff and the transmission.
Now, when you see the launch of a car like a Corvette Stingray, 7 generations of car in 60 years or so, it's a rare treat to take it out for a drive, and especially one that has so much promise, that promises that it's going to blow your mind with the performance. So let's go find out. What you first notice when you get behind the wheel of this Corvette Stingray is that the seats just snug all the way around you. I mean, these are tight-fitting seats, and it's got a magnesium frame underneath, which is very space age, a very jet fighter cockpit light. And speaking of that, all the instruments and controls, they wrap right around you. It's very, very driver-focused. The big readout for the navigation and the sound system is just right there in your hand. And then in the instrument cluster, depending on which driver mode mode you dial up, whether it's winter or sport or track. You get a different configuration in the instrument cluster to reflect that. Also, with the manual cars, you can dial it in so that their throttle blip is just like you were doing the heel toe motion that super pro drivers had. And most of all, what's very impressive about the cockpit is it is clean and well ordered, and it doesn't look like it was drawn out of the bargain basement. Chevy has really put some effort into making the interior as good as the technology underneath. Well, now that was pretty interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunity. Oh, just close the door. I mean, this car is a very high performance car, and it's a loads and loads of fun. But it doesn't punish you when the roads get miserable and potted and rutted. It's not horrible. I think the Corvette's onto something here, or Chevy's onto something, and they better be, because this is the halo car. If this car doesn't stick, if this doesn't resonate, if this doesn't really improve the brand, no one's going to believe that the comeback that GM has started is going to have legs and have a finish. Now, Harlan, to me, the history of the Corvette is the history of General Motors at its best, when General Motors was just so engaging and excited about the future and really breaking new ground. And it started with this car behind me. What do we got here?
Well, we got the original Corvette, started in '53, 60 years ago. It started as a Motorama dream car, and it was really touted as the first of the dream cars to come true, designed by Harley Earl. And this car inspired a young engineer, Zora Arkostuntov, to come in and make this car into a world-class sports car.
This is my favorite Corvette of all time. Am I alone?
Though this is a lot of people's favorite. This is the second generation Corvette, which was the Stingray generation, brought off the Stingray. A lot of people's favorites, like 63 split window coupe. This one we're standing by is actually a 66. It has the 427 big block engine. This was the first year of that engine.
I was just about to start high school in 1972 when this car hit the market. It was so sexy.
Yeah, this car was based on the Mako Shark show car of the 60s and came out in 1968, the third generation, and is the longest running Corvette generation, went all the way to 1982 and put us through some tough times. But this is a 72, has the LT1 engine, which was the powerful version of the small block.
This convertible, you're going to hate me for this, my least favorite.
Really?
Yes. What happened? Tell me the story of this car.
Well, this Corvette, it was long awaited because we said the previous generation was so long. And what we really wanted to do, the fourth generation Corvette, was bring the Corvette back to the forefront of performance. A lot of technology, even electronics in the gauges back in that day. Car came out in '83 as an '84 model, and I think some of the features in the car, the full clamshell opening hood, bringing back tune port injection, bringing back some of the horsepower that we had lost during the struggle for cleaner emissions and things like that, really brought the Corvette back.
What I remember about this car, because I was a young journo at the time, is the rumors were rife that there wouldn't be a C5, that General Motors wasn't going to do a C5, it wasn't worth the money. How did this car make it to the showroom?
That's a good point. Yeah, this is the car I think that saved the Corvette. You know, we really had to come up with something innovative to keep the Corvette going. And in '97, this car came out with a totally new way of making an automobile. Hydroform structure. We moved the transmission from the front to the back for better weight distribution. It was the first year of the Z06, which is a more performance-oriented car. Of course, all the fans know that. And come out with 385, eventually 405 horsepower, and this day really world-class performance car.
Well, this brings us to Generation 6, C6, and this really was a monster of a high-performance machine, probably, I think, underappreciated.
Yeah, it came out in '05, and this is a 2013, the finale of the sixth generation. You know, our focus on this car was really lightweight, make the car leaner and meaner, shorter overhangs, make the car really world-class, can compete all over the world. Very successful, 24 hours of Le Mans racing, and we even had the ZR1, which up to a mighty 638 horsepower.
This is, I guess you would argue, the most high-tech, high-performance, and high-value Corvette in the history of the brand.
This is the 2014 Corvette Stingray. Of course, we have a standard aluminum frame structure, carbon fiber hood, carbon fiber roof panel, LT1 engine, 460 horsepower, 0 to 60 3.8, and yet 29 miles per gallon on the highway.
This car in Canada is around $60,000. I'd argue it's too cheap.
I'm welcome to give me more money if you'd like, but I think, with the economic times and things like that, we really want the Corvette to be the car, regardless of what sports car you can afford. That's not an excuse anymore. We use the finest materials in this car, leather wrapped interior, carbon fiber, aluminum.
You're looking for a buyer who may not have ever considered a Corvette before.
That's exactly right. The things we focused on, the Corvette wins with the stopwatch, and we talked about the value, but what we wanted to do is the things you can't measure with a stopwatch, all the subjective things, the way the steering feels, the shifter, the pedals, how fun it is to drive, of course the materials. We want somebody that really appreciates a fine sports car, not just, of course, the performance which we have, but really wants an enjoyable experience and world class. They can now appreciate the new Corvette Stingray.
From Corvettes in California to the new Silverado pickup truck in Newfoundland. That's coming up after the break.